So today we will try to go through the first chapter of this book, which is known as First Shower of Nectar. And in this first chapter, actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is trying to introduce some few very important philosophical moments in order that we understand properly the greatness of Krishna consciousness, of devotional service, of Bhakti Yoga. So we will go through them, and from next time we'll dive more deeply into the essence of this book. So the first thing that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is doing in his book is he is offering his humble obeisances first to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is non-different than Krishna and who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his mercy, we cannot be successful in any endeavor. And the second thing that he is doing, he is offering his humble obeisances to Sri Rupa Goswami. Why especially him out of all great acharyas in our disciplic succession? Well, he's explaining that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to give something very, very special. Before Lord Chaitanya, there was many other devotees practicing devotional service. But basically, all of them, they were practicing devotional service, which is mainly influenced by the mood of awe and reverence, or serving Krishna as a servant and accepting Krishna that he is the Supreme Lord, the greatest personality of all. So basically that was we could say, the mood of the Vaikuntha planets. Then when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he gave something very, very special that nobody ever before him gave. And that is the spontaneous devotional service to Krishna, and especially spontaneous devotional service in the mood of the gopis, the greatest devotees, which basically is the mood of Goloka Vrindavan, the highest abode in the spiritual world. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that this kind of idea, or this kind of devotional service, spontaneous devotional service in the mood of the servants of Krishna residing on Goloka Vrindavana, this is available only through Sri Rupa Goswami. Without his mercy, we cannot enter this kind of bhakti, raganuga bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service. And then Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur starts to gradually describe the few main philosophical concepts. The first one is that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the highest way how we can perceive the absolute truth or absolute reality. We know that absolute truth can be perceived in three main ways, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But out of those three, Krishna is superior than the realization of Brahman. Why he's addressing this point? Well, because especially at that time, many spiritualists, they had the idea, being impersonalists, that impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord is highest, and it's higher than the personal, than Krishna, than Vishnu. But by quoting some verses from Shastra, and especially one quote from the Upanishads, which is known as Rasavaisaha, he is establishing that Krishna is higher. What is the meaning of Rasavaisaha? Well, Rasavaisaha means that Krishna, he is the reservoir of all rasa, all relationships, and the pleasure that comes from these relationships. So how this is establishing that Krishna is higher? Well, because in Brahman, or in personal idea about God, you cannot have relationships, and you cannot have the special nectar or special taste that is coming from this relationship. So from this perspective, Krishna is higher, because with the supreme reality as Krishna, you can have relationship, you can have personal relationships, and you can get experience nectar, joy, happiness from these relationships. Yes, in Brahman we can also get some happiness, but it is much inferior happiness than the happiness that we are getting from our service rendered to Krishna.
And we should also remember that this is in Bhagavatam. This is called non-dual substance, the absolute truth. So this is one spiritual reality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and he has different aspects according to the adhikar, or the qualification of the worshipper. So Krishna has impersonal aspect, but Brahman doesn't have personal aspect. We can say something personal. If you're a person, you can have impersonal aspect. You, for example, somebody behaved improperly with you, so then you behave with this person impersonal. You're not personal with him, but that's you, the person who decides that I will show my impersonal whatever nature to this particular person. So a person can be impersonal, but the theory, the Mayavadi's idea of Brahman doesn't permit personal aspect. So in this sense, Krishna is the as explained in the Bhagavad-Gita. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Krishna is the basis of Brahman, but Brahman is just the effulgence of Krishna's body. So Brahman depends on Krishna, not vice versa.
Yes, thank you, Panna. So after establishing this very important point that Krishna actually is the supreme reality, supreme absolute truth, then there is discussion on the main nature of Krishna and his Bhakti Shakti, or Bhakti energy, the energy of devotional service. Both of them, they have two very important qualifications. They're self-manifested. Self-manifested means they are not dependent on some material cause to appear somewhere. And they are independent. They can appear whenever they like and wherever they like. So we have verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 11 Canto, chapter 20, verse 8. One special word is used in this verse. The word is Yadrichaya. Yadrichaya means that the Lord, or his Bhakti Shakti, spiritual energy of devotion, they can appear on their own volition. They can appear spontaneously wherever they decide, or independently, as we said. So that's like a proof from Shastra, from Srimad Bhagavatam, that the Supreme Lord is independent, and the way how he is independent, his spiritual energy, Bhakti Shakti, is also independent. In other words, we can make this statement. It's a very important statement. We will remind it to ourselves again and again, that Bhakti is the only cause of Bhakti. When Bhakti appears in life of someone, the cause Bhakti to appear can be only spiritual. It cannot be material. This is very important moment. So some people, they are saying, well, there are places where it is said that by a good fortune, one can get the opportunity to practice devotional service, or opportunity to meet the devotees of Krishna, or go to the temple of Krishna. And they are saying, so if it's by good fortune, that means that there is some material reason. Basically, it looks like these people, they were doing many different material pious activities. For example, they were good people, they were helping others, they were giving money in charity, and so on and so on. And because of that, now they have the opportunity to practice devotional service. They have the opportunity to associate with Vaishnavas. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying no, because if this is the case, this would make bhakti, which is totally transcendental independent, dependent on some material circumstances. Oh, because you're a good person, that means now bhakti is obliged to appear. No, bhakti is not obliged to appear from any material situation. So then, if that's the case, what is the cause for bhakti to appear? Well, we said the cause of bhakti to appear can be only bhakti. So what does that mean? How bhakti brings bhakti? It's a little bit confusing. Well, basically that means that Krishna has very, very special relationship with his devotees, pure devotees, and especially devotees who are trying to spread Krishna consciousness, the preachers. He is so obliged to them for the job that they are doing that Krishna is giving them freedom. They can choose to which personality to give mercy. And because Krishna is so obliged to them, his mercy is following their mercy. For example, some Sankirtan devotee with the books of Srila Prabhupada or with Mridanga and Karatas can go on the street and he can decide on which place to go. For example, in which shop to enter and to which person to offer books. And the mercy of Krishna will follow the mercy that this devotee is giving to someone. This is very interesting. Someone may say, wait a minute. Well, that means that actually first Krishna is partial, yes, because the Supreme Lord apparently should be completely equal to everybody, but it doesn't look like that. Yeah, Bhagavad-Gita Krishna is saying, well, I'm equal to everyone. I don't have special attachment to someone, I don't have special aversion to someone. But at the same time, we see that it looks like that Krishna is partial. Actually, he is not partial. Rather, this is his special connection with his devotees, with his pure devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining this is not a fault. Yes, it's not a fault. There's discrepancy in the character of Krishna. Rather, is his embellishment, is the great quality of Krishna that he is Bhakta Vatsala. The greatest quality of Krishna, that he is Bhakta Vatsala. He is always extremely attached to his devotees, and that's why for his devotees he's ready to do amazing things. We have example about this in Shastra. If we go to Srimad Bhagavatam, the story with Ambarish Maharaj, I hope that you know this story. But shortly, if someone doesn't know, we'll just say Ambarish Maharaj was a very great king, but he was at the same time pure devotee. So one time he was fasting for a long time, and it was just about to finish his fast. Of course, he was doing it totally for the pleasure of Krishna, because he's a pure devotee. Just at that time when he was ready to break his fast, the great sage Durvasa Muni appeared on the scene. And he entered his palace and has said, my dear king, I'm hungry and your duty is to feed me. And then, of course, the king was ready to give him whatever he wants and he needs. But then the sage said, first I want to go to the river and perform my duties, take shower and purificational process, and then I'll come back to eat. However, the problem was that while king was waiting for Durvasa Muni to come back, the time for breaking his fast was passing, and he became a little worried. So he asked his pandits, his ministers, what to do in this difficult situation. And they said, oh, no problem, dear king. You can just drink some water, because according to Shastra, if you are fasting completely, to drink water, this breaks your fast, but at the same time, it's not considered eating. So you will break your fast, but at the same time, you will not offend the great sage Durvasa Muni by eating in front of taking care of him, which is part of the Vedic culture. So great, the king did it, but the problem was Durvasa Muni with his mystic powers understood immediately, and he became extremely angry. So angry that he said, for your incorrect attitude, I will punish you now. And he took a hair from his head and throw it on the ground by saying mantras, and from this hair appeared a huge demon, and he rushed in the direction of Ambarish Muni to kill him, Ambarish Maharaj, to kill him. And the moment this happened, Ambarish Maharaj, of course, being a pure devotee, he took complete shelter of Krishna. He said, okay, my dear Lord, it looks like if this is your desire to leave this world now, sure, I'm ready. This moment, though, suddenly from nowhere, the personal weapon of Krishna appeared, Sudarshan Chakra, the powerful disc weapon of Krishna. And he killed the demon just for a second and started rushing after the great Muni, Durvasa Muni, to punish him for his wrong deed. And Durvasa Muni, being very powerful sage, started traveling through the whole universe, trying to escape. But it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, all the time he was feeling the heat from the weapon of Krishna behind himself, on his neck. So at the end, he reached Vaikuntha, the personal abode of Krishna, of Vishnu, and fell at the lotus feet of Vishnu and said, my dear Lord, please save me. Save me. Please tell to your weapon to spare my life. And Vishnu said, oh, sorry, but I cannot do anything. If you have some problem with my weapon, actually you have to go and ask for forgiveness from my devotee Ambarish Maharaj. Because my weapon is behind you just because of this reason. So then Durvasa Muni, he tried to establish who is right and who is wrong, Ambarish Maharaj or he himself. And he said, but my dear Lord, just tell me in this situation who was right and who was wrong. Like Ambarish Muni, he has to take care of me. He is Kshatriya and I am Brahmin. I am with a higher social status. And he had to wait for me first to take care of me, and he didn't do it. So who is right and who is wrong? You tell me. And what did Vishnu said? He said, I don't know. I don't know actually who is right and who is wrong. Because actually I am completely dependent on my devotees. Vishnu said, Sadvo hridayam mahyam sadunam hridayam tu aham matanyate na jananti naham tebyo manakapi. The sadhus, the great Vaishnavas, they are always residing in my heart, and I'm always residing in their heart. I don't know anything but them, and they don't know anything but me. So I don't know. Please, you go and ask Ambarish Maharaj what is right and what is wrong. And whatever he establishes right as wrong, I will accept it. These were the words of Vishnu. So the Supreme Lord, apparently, he became totally subordinate to his devotee, pure devotee. And this is the only way how Durvasa Muni managed to escape from this difficult situation. He went immediately back to earth, fell at the lotus feet of Ambarish Maharaj and asked for forgiveness. And then only Sudarshan Chakra disappeared, spared his life, when Ambarish Maharaj forgave him. So this illustrates this philosophical point that Krishna is not partial. Krishna is ready to give his mercy to all living entities, but he has special preferences to his devotees. Why? Because he is known as Bhaktavatsala. He will never abandon or leave his devotees in a difficult situation. He will always take care of them. And there is a nice commentary on Srila Prabhupada where he is saying Krishna prefers to be known as Bhakta Vatsala, or the protector of his pure devotees, than to be known as sharp moralist, someone who is giving his word and he's just following his word. So like that, just to go back to the main discussion, Bhakti cannot appear because of some material circumstances or conditions, but rather Bhakti is following the mercy that Bhaktas are giving to someone. That's why we are saying Bhakti is coming from Bhakti. The pure devotees, they have already Bhakti in their hearts. And when they decide to give Bhakti to someone, the spiritual energy of Krishna Bhakti Shakti is following this. And that's why someone may start the process of Krishna consciousness, process of pure devotional service. And if we look in our personal lives, if we go back, we will see that somehow or other we got in contact with this Bhakti Shakti, generally through his devotee, directly or indirectly. So this is the way how we can get Krishna Bhakti, only by Bhakta, by the mercy of the devotees.
Hare Krishna. Is this makes any sense?
If yes, show your tongue. If not, close your eyes. Okay. Great. Sounds good.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. Tulsi Prabhu was saying that this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes a verse from Bhagavatam. It is a verse from 11th canto, as we heard. I want to read this verse. It says, if somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, Krishna tells this to Uddhava, such a person, being neither very disgusted with nor attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to me. That means the qualification for bhakti, to start the process of bhakti, is to be neither very attached to material sense gratification, or neither too disgusted by material sense gratification. So it should be in between. Because if somebody is too attached to material life, he is qualified not for bhakti but for karma. And if somebody is disgusted, then he's qualified not for bhakti but for jnana.
Jnana yoga.
So these are actually the two extremes that we should avoid. Since time immemorial, we have been doing karma or jnana. So we are trying to enjoy our senses, and when we become frustrated, then we try to renounce everything. I just heard the story. Haigriva Prabhu, one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada, one day he announced to Srila Prabhupada, back then Srila Prabhupada was known as Swamiji. Swamiji, I decided to renounce the world. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he said, how can you renounce something that you don't possess? It's not yours to renounce. So bhakti is neither dry renunciation nor sense gratification, like material sense gratification. It is in between. That means we are engaging our senses in service of the Lord, in the spirit of yukta vairagya. So Tulsi Prabhu was explaining that bhakti doesn't have cause, and somebody can say, but wait a minute, we know that bhakti comes from association with devotees. So there is a cause. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, no, there is no cause, because association with devotees is actually bhakti. It's part of devotion. It's anga of bhakti. It's one of the 5 most potent forms of bhakti. So in this sense,
it's not part of any material reason.
Yeah, it's not it's part of bhakti. Only bhakti can lead to bhakti.
Yes. So then next important philosophical point. Now we are starting one little bit long discussion. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur starts. The first main point in this discussion is that Bhakti Devi and devotional service, Krishna consciousness, is the only means to attain complete perfection in life. This is very important point. We are going to discuss this next time very much in details, but now we can just say that it is very, very important point. Why? Because if one does not have this firm conviction that only through bhakti he can achieve the highest perfection in life, he does not have the required faith, or the Sanskrit word is shraddha, so that he can start the process of pure devotional service. Like in life, we know in order to start something serious, we should have faith in it. If we don't have faith, we will not start it. Like, for example, you want to start business, you will take, I don't know how many $100,000 loan from the bank. Well, you got to be pretty firm and convinced in what you want to do to start. So in the same way, if we don't have firm faith that through bhakti we can achieve the highest perfection in life, then how we are going to seriously start practicing this process? That's why now he is mentioning it. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning this point philosophically, and later he will start discussing it more into depth. And he is quoting a very, very famous verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's extremely famous verse. First canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, verse 17. It's a verse spoken by Narada Muni. Narada Muni is saying, Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer, bhajan apakvo tapatityato yadi yatrakva vabhadram abhuttamushakim kova artam bhajatam swadharmataha. Basically, the verse is explaining that if someone starts the process of devotional service, he begins his practice of Krishna consciousness. But for some reasons, for example, as Pandava Prabhu was explaining, he is, for example, too attached to material sense gratification or too averse from it. For some reasons, he stops his practice of devotional service. What is the loss? This verse is saying. What is the loss? If someone starts practicing bhakti, but for some reason he does not finish his practice, he does not achieve full perfection this life, what is his loss? There is no loss. Because whatever we did in bhakti, it stays as us, our eternal credit. It will never be lost. And next time we will start from the place where we finish this life and we will achieve full perfection. But then the second part of the verse is saying, but if someone is not practicing bhakti and he in a perfect way is performing his material obligations, material duties, yatra kva vabhadram avabhadram abhut amushakim. So what is the use of all this? Narada Muni is saying.
What is the gain?
Yes. What is the gain? For example, we are extremely good in our material thing, and we achieve full perfection. Like, for example, we are extremely good businessmen and we make millions of dollars. And then if this is not connected with Krishna, in other words, if we are not going to use this money somehow or other for Krishna, what is the use? This money, they came in our life, and the same way they came, they will disappear from our life. What is the use? What kind of permanent benefit we'll get from this? There is no permanent benefit. That's why Narada Muni is concluding in this verse. He is saying, what is the use if we achieve perfection in our material endeavors? Of course, just to balance it, it's not that we shouldn't put material endeavors, because all of us, to some extent or other, we have material duties. Take care of our body, take care of our family. He has to go to job, We have to maintain whatever we have, house, this, that. So these are material duties. It's not that we shouldn't do it as a devotees. We have to do it, but it should be all connected directly or indirectly with Krishna consciousness, with Bhakti Yoga. Otherwise, as this verse is saying, what is the gain? There is no gain. So gradually, by listening such kind of discussions and listening these statements of the great sages from books like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on, our internal faith and determination that the bhakti is the highest thing, and this is the main thing that we have to do, matures more and more and more and more. And then it will be very easy for us to dedicate ourselves for this practice, for chanting, for reading books like Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with the devotees. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur starts discussing what is the problem with other processes. Like Bhakti is one process, but we have other. We have Karma Yoga. That means to do your job, as we are discussing now, but be detached from the fruits that you're getting from your work. Or Jnana Yoga, one becomes totally disinterested from anything material and goes to the Himalaya mountains and performs austerities, living in a cave and so on and so on. Or Ashtanga Yoga, performing meditation, not eating, not sleeping, non-stop. So what's the problem with this other process? Why they cannot give us ultimate or the supreme perfection of life? Well, the first thing is that these processes, they are not really spiritual. So they cannot help us to achieve a spiritual goal. That's why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining that they can be successful only if there is some bhakti added to their practice. Otherwise, they will not give us any perfection. Like if we are practicing karma or if we are practicing yoga, for example, if someone becomes sannyasi and travels all over the world, not Krishna conscious sannyasi, but just sannyasi from the Vedic system or great mystic yogi, if they don't add some bhakti in their practice, they will not be successful. They cannot achieve liberation from this material existence, which is the ultimate goal of all these processes. Karma yoga, jnana yoga.
Well, the karma kandis, they cannot attain even the heavenly planets.
Yes.
If there is no some bhakti.
Yes, if some
mercy of the Lord. Yeah.
If some practitioner of karma yoga, his goal is not to get rid from the material existence, but rather just to go and enjoy on heavenly planets, even this he cannot achieve without the mercy of Bhakti Shakti. So some bhakti should be part of their practice in order that they can get the result of their practice. For example, they, like traditionally, if we go in India, we will see all these practitioners, they have somehow or other parts of the bhakti process. Maybe they will read books like Bhagavad-Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. They don't have the understanding of a devotee. They don't have the faith, the strong determination and belief of a devotee, but some parts of the process of bhakti will be part of their process, like reading books like Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or chanting some mantras, maybe sometimes Hare Krishna mantra. Some of them will be Brahmanas and they will worship Shalagram Shiva. Of course, they may not do it with the same devotion like the devotees, but still some bhakti should be there so that they can get their results. The bhakti process, however, instead of being dependent on the other processes, no, he gives them potency so that they can be successful. And the bhakti process is totally independent from all other processes for success. We have a famous verse from Bhagavad-Gita. It's 8th chapter, the last verse from the chapter, I believe is 28, where it is said, Vedeshu yegeshu tapasku chaiva daneshu yat punya palam pratishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param stanam upaiti chadyam. If someone is practicing Krishna consciousness, he is not losing the benefits from all these other activities like giving in charity, studying the Vedas, performing Vedic sacrifices, performing austerities. No, this verse is saying he will get automatically by the performance of devotional service, he will get the results of all this automatically. But not only this, at the end, param stanam upaiti chadyam, he will go back to the spiritual world. So this is the potency of bhakti. Potency of bhakti is totally independent. It will give you the results of all other processes, but it will give you something else. It will give you opportunity to go back to the spiritual world, or it will give you love of God, Krishna prema. Krishna prema. Other processes like karma, jnana, and yoga, in order to give their result, they are connected with so many material conditions. Like, for example, to be successful in the performance of different ritualistic rituals, karma, there are so many conditions. You have to make the ritual at exactly certain time. You have to put lots of endeavor. It will cost a lot of money. There are generally mantras sung during this ritual, and you have to sing them in a extremely accurate and proper way. Generally, these are Sanskrit mantras. So Vedic mantras, yes. If some of them are not chanted properly, the whole ultimate result, it will be lost. At the end, there will be no any fruit, any tangible result. In the, of course, someone may say, hey, wait a minute, we are chanting mantras from Bhagavad-Gita. There is a difference because the mantras on Sanskrit language from Bhagavad-Gita, they are on a classical Sanskrit. And because of that, you can chant them in any way. There is no harm and there is no problem. But the Vedic mantras, generally Vedic mantras are considered those mantras which starts with Om. These mantras, there is a very specific way how you have to chant them, and there is certain qualifications like Gayatri mantras and so on and so on. So this is material conditions that are connected with the path of karma yoga, practice of karma yoga. For jnana yoga, also, in order to practice jnana yoga, you have to be first pure materially to very big extent. Your heart should be pure. Otherwise, you go somewhere in the mountain trying to renounce the whole material existence, but your mind, again, instead of meditating on spiritual topics and spiritual reality, will again and again meditate on the different opportunities for material sense gratification. So at the end, your practice will be completely useless. So again, first you have to achieve certain amount of purity, and only then you can practice this method. So in this way, all these other processes, they are dependent on some material conditions. Now with bhakti, it's totally the opposite way. If karma yogi or jnana yogi falls down from their position, they are contaminated and condemned strongly in the scriptures. For example, if these practitioners are practicing and they have little bit problem in their practice, immediately scriptures are condemning them so much. We can read some quotes, but just that's the point that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is making.
Yeah, if a jnana yogi, because they are normally sannyasis, these impersonal sannyasis, they fall down. The term that is used in the Shastra is vantasi, which means a person who eats his own vomit. You vomit something, that means material sanctification, you reject it, and then you go back to this, so that means you eat back what you have vomited. So that's how Shastra describes the falling down of a jnani. And for a karmi, it's not much different. But if devotee has material desires and lust or greed or envy, all these bad material qualities, then his position is different. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-Gita, Habichet Sudaracharo Bhajita Mamanana, about this famous verse from 9th chapter. Krishna explains, even if my devotee is engaged in abominable activities, still he has to be considered saintly person, sadhu. Why? Because his determination is proper. His goal is to attain Krishna Prema. And Krishna says, very soon he will become righteous. My dear Kaunteya, my dear Krishna, you can boldly declare that my devotee will never perish. It's one of the most famous verses in Gita. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakti pranashiti. This is, Krishna spoke this in this context. Of course, Prabhupada also says this shouldn't be used as an excuse. Devotees shouldn't use this verse as an excuse to do all kinds of nonsense and to basically to commit offenses on the strength of the holy name.
Yeah, but the point is very, very strong that actually these practices, they're opposite to bhakti, because first you should have certain material qualification, and only then you can start these practices. Whereas the bhakti process works totally the opposite way. You can be completely materially contaminated and still you can start the process of bhakti, and the process of bhakti is so strong that gradually you will be completely purified from all your material contaminations and you'll become a pure devotee. This is the glory of bhakti, of Krishna consciousness, of devotional service.
I have a question here. Can you give example of what karma yoga and jnana yoga looks like with some bhakti added to it?
We said something, but
yeah, for example, karma, when that this is called bhakti mishra karma. It's karma mixed with bhakti. That means your goal is to enjoy in the material life, but you understand that Krishna is the big boss, and then that means you have to please him somehow or other. And then you give some donation to Krishna, to the devotees. You invite sadhus in your home. You entertain them, feed them, but your goal ultimately is to attain Svarga Loka, for example, or something else. But it's a material result. Then this is karma, bhakti mishra karma. But if you're more advanced, then you understand that the goal is actually Krishna. And then although you still have material desires, you mentally renounce those while engaging them in devotional service. And then although you may be family person or do your material obligations, your ultimate goal is to attain Krishna Prema. So this is then karma mishra bhakti. It's bhakti, but there is some mishra, or it's mixed with karma.
Still a little bit contamination.
And jnana, usually that means that the devotee has this mood of awe and reverence to the Lord. He or she, devotee, wants to serve the Lord. He doesn't have desire to serve the Lord actively. He just wants to appreciate the Lord. This is Shanta Rasa. Without desire of active service, just meditation on the Lord, appreciating His wonderful qualities. Or if somebody is not so advanced, it could be even mixed with desire for impersonal liberation. But even if somebody wants to be liberated, to attain impersonal liberation, still he has to not offend the Lord. If somebody wants to attain liberation and at the same time offends the Lord, then he will never attain liberation. Therefore, the Mayavadis never go anywhere. They always stay in the material world. I think it's about time to...
Yes. So we can
wrap up.
Just make a conclusion for today, and then we'll give you some time for questions if you want to ask something. So basically, today it was a little bit more philosophical. We discussed how Krishna is higher than Brahman, and Krishna and his Bhakti Shakti, they are completely independent, and they can appear whenever and wherever they like according to their free will. And that Krishna is using his devotees and he's following their mercy. Wherever devotees decide to give mercy, Krishna is following that. Also, we are discussing how Bhakti is the highest perfection. There is nothing higher than this that we can achieve. And in comparison to the other processes, Bhakti is completely independent, whereas the other processes, they are rather always dependent on some material conditions for success, and also on Bhakti itself. Without Bhakti, they cannot produce any result. And at the end, we spoke that the practitioner of Bhakti, he is not disqualified if he has some material contaminations in his heart, material desires. Rather, even if he has material desires and he starts with faith practicing the process of Bhakti, the result will be that his Bhakti will grow and his material contamination gradually will disappear completely, and he will become a pure devotee of the Lord. So these philosophical moments, gradually now they'll be illustrated in the book, in the later chapters, with very practical explanations, practical for our personal life as a devotee. So it will become more and more interesting and practical. And we think that we hope that you'll stay with us, and we hope that you get a lot from this seminar. So now, please, if you have some questions, please, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Whoever has a question. Or looks like everything is clean, huh? Is it? Okay, so if you don't have anything special to ask, thank you very much for your attention, for your patience, and I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time. Yes? Thank you very, very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. See you next week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.